Dawn Butler.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, we all owe a depth of gratitude to the Privileges Committee and to the Chair, Camberwell and Peckham, who's had to actually sit through some of the strangest speeches that I've heard in this House. Honestly, and I thank the member for Birmingham Yardley for mentioning Mina Smallman, who is an amazing woman who continues to fight to keep the memory of her daughters alive and to change the system, whether that be the police or even any other systems. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is all about democracy. The trust that should exist between the government and those that are governed has been badly damaged, and the question must be to every single member of this House is, how do we repair that damage? And the way we do that is that we must demand transparency, honesty and integrity from those who hold positions of power, those that stand at the dispatch box. And the leader of the House gave an impassioned speech saying just that, because we must not tolerate the casual disregard for truth that has become the hallmark of this government. It should shame us all. We are honourable members of Parliament. It isn't just a title. It is something that we should hold dear. We should be honourable in what we do in this place. We should be honourable to the people that we serve because they have elected us. And democracy demands honourable conduct. And we haven't seen much of that over the last few years. And if we allow lies to go unchecked and deceit to become the norm, then our democracy begins to crumble. And that's what's been happening. We sit here time and time again, we see ministers come into the dispatch box and we're all saying, but that's not true, that's not true. And we're standing up and we're saying, but that's not true. And then we're saying, we're not allowed to say it's not true. We have to say they've inadvertently misled the House. They will come back to the House and correct the record. And they never come back. They tell a lie, they sit down, they have a goofy grin on their face, then they walk out and they never come back to correct the records. And that is a problem for our democracy. And this House must be able to call truth to power. This House, members of this House, honourable members of this House, must be able to stand up and say, that is incorrect. Otherwise, what is the point and the purpose? And we must also not be so obsessed with the archaic rules of this House. We must be honest with ourselves and say, we've got to challenge the rules of this House if they're not working. We've got to challenge the system of this House if it's not working. And I do think it's a nonsense that you cannot call somebody a liar if they are lying. I think it's a nonsense of this House. And people say, well, then it's just going to degrade the House and everyone's going to be calling each other a liar. Well, if you don't want to be called a liar, don't lie. If you don't want to be called a liar, tell the truth. That is the solution to the problem. And the truth must prevail and integrity must be restored. And the thing is, we are currently, all members of this House, we are the guardian of our democracy right now in this House. And I don't think, I'm sorry, that we are doing a really good job. We must do much better. But this report does bring some of that back. And the thing is this, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's quite ironic that 2 years ago I was thrown out of Parliament, this place, for calling Johnson a liar. And the irony is that if he wasn't such a weasel and if he didn't resign, he would have been thrown out of this place for 90 days for lying. And that is the irony of this situation. And I think that, I mean, okay, yeah, it would have made me a little bit happy to see him thrown out of the House. but ultimately, it isn't about that. It is about our system in this place. And we have got to do better. It wasn't easy breaking the convention of the House. You know, I got a lot of abuse by some of the members opposite. You know, how dare she? Blah, 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 blah. And but that was a Jacob Rees-Mogg impression. But and I do talk about the aftermath of what it was like in my book, A Purposeful Life. And sometimes I wonder, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is the purpose of Parliament if we can't hold ministers to account, if we're just going to allow them to lie? And, you know, Johnson knew he was lying. We all knew he was lying. And he knew we knew he was lying. But the system protected him. Yep. And what we have to do is change the system. So the system doesn't protect the liar or the lies. The system protects Parliament and our democracy. We need to change a system. And the thing is, as we get...
Would my friend get word?
Absolutely.
I thank my honourable friend for making a very passionate and honest speech. Honesty is the best policy. In terms of the system that she alluded to in protecting the former Prime Minister, does she agree with me that the motion that we're discussing today, privilege, that privilege is not sometimes afforded to other members of this Parliament, even though we are all elected in the same way? That privilege of saying and doing what you want is not afforded to some members in this chamber.
Yes. Yeah. I thank my honourable friend for that important intervention, and you're absolutely right. Some people's privilege extends beyond this house. So when they lie in this house, they also have the privilege of their mates in the newspapers, you know, and on the media that then protects that lie and that privilege and puts that coat of protection around them. And actually, our democracy needs to be strong enough to stop that from happening and exposing that from happening. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we get ever closer to a general election, ministers will try and whip up moral panic, and they will begin to spread further lies, and they will push this fake culture war, some of it that we've seen on display today. And we actually can't wait for 2 years for a privileged committee to find them guilty of lying or misleading the House, because that would be too late. So the question has to be, what do we do, where do we go, and who's going to stand up for democracy and truth? And the member, the former Prime Minister, is no longer in her place. The member for Maidenhead said that as a Prime Minister, it was difficult to make decisions on friends. And I understand that, because you know, you're going to make a decision on somebody and then you may be standing with them in the queue in the tea room and you're going to feel bad about it. So I completely understand where the former Prime Minister was coming from. So I think, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that a solution should be that we should take that responsibility away from the Prime Minister, and it should become the responsibility of the House when somebody breaks the ministerial code. Because you cannot have, like we had, the Prime Minister deciding who's lying and not lying when he was the chief liar himself. So that responsibility should become the House's responsibility. And I've retabled my EDM, which I tabled in 2021, and I then had 105 signatures, and I do hope more members will sign that EDM about how we talk about the Minister's Code of Conduct. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I end, can I just say that the Parliament record shows that I was asked to withdraw from Parliament for calling Johnson a liar, and I will be writing to the House just to wonder if that could possibly be expunged or some kind of amendment or addendum besides it to say, you know, that it was actually correct and he was a liar. Yeah. I just wonder if I will do that and put that on record. And I would just like to end on Boris Johnson's favourite, I understand, politician, Winston Churchill, who said, "There could be no democracy without truth." Yeah.